Okay, well, thank you for those questions. If we can move on. It's your turn, Councillor Hickford. You've been elevated, so welcome.
Thank you. You have before you a report written by the Chair of the Assembly. What I will say is, for us, the meeting on the 15th, the Assembly was a relatively short and fairly uncontentious meeting, so that was good news. I understand that you take each agenda item as it comes, and maybe I can have input afterwards, what there will be. So if we can do that, you have the report for you.
Okay, thank you for that. So yes, if we take, so we've got, that's effectively item 5, and we note one variation that you proposed on one of those items. So
yes.
But you're welcome to have a say before each of the items. So if we take that as approved, then we can move on to the Chisholm Trail, item 6. So again, Roger, if you just want to just talk to that item, specifically the recommendations, and any additional points that you want to make on that.
Thank you, Chair. The 2 points have been made. I think the progress with Cambridge PPF is obviously very good news. There was concern over the leper colony, leper church, and colony. That's what better. I'm sure it was at one time. The leper church, and obviously there's ongoing discussion with that, which is very good news. The other thing that the Assembly was concerned about was the A, which approved the proposed route for the option for the Chisholm Trail, which kind of said that there was a route set in stone, and actually what we wanted was a route agreed that could go out for consultation, and that's why the italics is there, for the purposes of consultation. And I think we've heard several reasons today as to why that's more than a good idea.
Okay, well thank you. We've got the route on page 28, so thank you for that, and also the useful additional wording there. Can I ask Claire Rankin to just say a few words on the proposal that's in front of us, or do you want to say it, Graham? Don't kill each other in the process of deciding.
I'll kick off, but Claire is here, who's actually much more engaged in the technical work, so Claire will be able to answer any detailed questions that I wouldn't be able to answer in the same level of detail. So I'll keep the introduction, Chairman, very brief.
Yep.
Because members of the board no doubt will have read the paper, but I think probably just the key 1 or 2 points to make is that, as we've heard from Jim Chisholm, the Chisholm Trail has actually long been an aspiration of both the County Council and certainly the City Council to actually bring forward, because of the significant benefits that a north-south route linking particularly the areas of science activity in the Science Park and Business Park with the now rapidly expanding Biomed campus in the south, the railway station, the city centre. So it's a really key route. One of the big issues that I think we've consistently faced over the years is the ability to fund and bring that route forward. And so the city deal clearly offers a very useful opportunity to do that. I think one of the other really important things to make, and the paper sets down some of the evidence that's been considered in terms of the economic benefit of cycling, and very significant numbers of people, as has been said a number of times in these meetings now, cycle to work and within Cambridge, and actually without that level of cycling then traffic congestion would be very, very much worse than it is. So the Chisholm Trail and the later paper on the broader cycle routes has a huge part to play in managing congestion, improving health and improving accessibility through the city. So the proposal, as Councillor Hickford has clarified from the Assembly's discussion, for consultation at this stage, the proposal is that potential scheme be subject to the decision today, put out to consultation with an intention of then coming back to the board in January, February with the results from the consultation and effectively a preferred recommended route. As I said in the response to Cambridge PPF, hopefully we'll continue those discussions, and any issues there should hopefully be ironed out as best we can. So really, subject to today's decision, we'd like to get out to public consultation in late summer, early autumn, come back early new year, and then move forward with design and delivery of this scheme. Thank you.
Okay. So that adds on page 27 a milestone that there'll be a report back to the board and by way of the Assembly, or with a proposal to proceed.
Correct.
January, February. subject to any changes and issues that arise through the consultation. So we've got the report in front of us. We've had the issue raised of the Leper Chapel, and Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems to me that going ahead at this point in time is the right thing to do. A lot of the comments I've heard this morning are about nuanced factors of the route that some people feel are right or wrong, and the purpose of going out to consultation on a proposed route is to find out and flesh out all of those questions from all parts of the community. And then when it comes back for decision making, we can look at what those questions really mean and the responses to them, and whether something should have changed as a result of them or whether it should stay as it is. So I'm quite comfortable with the overall moving forward as laid out. The one comment I would like to take on board at the moment is regards the Leper Chapel, the contribution from Chris Blenko, and that was about the surveys you're having done and asking us to wait until spring when they're ready. Well, unfortunately, the way that this city deal works is if we don't deliver schemes fairly rapidly on time and budget, and we're pushing the cycle ones as the fastest ones we can do, we won't get any more government money. We have a timescale where we have £100 million basically, and if we miss the way that we deliver those, we lose the opportunities of the next 200 and further 200. And so I urge you, if these are important details to feed into us, to find a way of getting early survey results into the consultation somehow, because I couldn't see us at this point in time agreeing to move the deadline, although the route may change and we'll see what that is. I don't want to accept anything that moves the deadline for us moving forward at pace. So just thought I'd feed that into.
Okay, and I think we've established that we will continue a parallel dialogue with them on that.
Just responding that I'm aware that the ecology survey I think is just in,
Okay.
and it hasn't been looked at in great detail yet, but from what I understand there aren't any major issues that have come out of it, but so that's early stages.
On
But
the alternate route.
on the area of around the Leper Chapel, so the ecology survey.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Sanders.
Well, first of all, I should declare I cycle in Cambridge almost every day.
Right.
So I agree with Steve. I think it's important that we get on with this, and I just urge the officers to see what mechanisms there are to get to a final conclusion, and then to start building and finishing it really as expeditious as we can, consistent with proper consultation and all the proper processes. But we really do need to get on with it.
Okay. Mr. Bridge.
Yeah, I also support the time issue and getting on with it, but agree with the proposed change of wording for the purposes of consultation.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the timetable, we will get a report back, subject to it being approved in January/February, and I think we're also, the board is keen just to have a look at the time scales. That this is probably to look at this as it is a single trail, but it's a series of sections, and if there are sections of it that can be moved sooner, then they will be moved sooner. So I think we've discussed and agreed that there should be a use of these timings as sort of final deadlines, but we may be able to achieve some of them sooner.
Chairman, yeah, through. I mean, we certainly could look at accelerating the programme. So I recognise the desire of the board to deliver schemes, as Councillor Count said, as quickly as possible. I think there are certainly some areas where we can twin track elements of work, and certainly, for example, the planning application and the engineering design. Some of that can be twin tracked. There is an element of risk in the sense that if what comes out of the planning process is slightly different to what went in, then there may be some abortive work. But we could try and mitigate that as much as possible. So what we can do is to look at the programme again and identify, with twin tracking and pushing as hard as possible, how we can accelerate that to, as Councillor Count said, deliver as quickly as possible on either bits or ultimately the whole of the scheme.
I mean, I would add that probably the main risk is Network Rail, is negotiating Network Rail on the land and getting those land issues sorted out. It's very difficult to, the communication and the feedback from them has taken a long time, and it's trying to speed that up and get them on properly on board and working with us. That's the main risk, I would say, with regards to timing. It's speeding them up.
Can I ask, is that with regards to Network Rail being fully involved in the consultation process, or is it actually the land that they own that we maybe need to deliver this?
They have been involved in the consultation, and we've had lots of discussions with them over a number of years. The problem is that obviously they own the land, and it is getting the right person who is high up enough to make those decisions and to feed that through, and that has been a big issue with them.
Chairman, can I just add briefly to that? I absolutely agree with that. And I mean, those certainly county council members who have been engaged in various other schemes that involve Network Rail. I mean, it is. I think Claire sort of underplayed it a little bit about how difficult it is to engage with Network Rail, and they because they effectively operate to a different set of rules to most people. It is incredibly difficult. I mean, we're very happy to be challenged to work very hard with Network Rail, and there are times when additional either political or other intervention is helpful with Network Rail, but nonetheless they are, to point out, just incredibly difficult to get agreement from within a reasonable time period, but we will do what we can to actually manage that.
Well, if we have a number of issues that we need to get Network Rail's agreement with, I'm sure the three leaders, amongst others, will be happy to give up time to progress it. But I mean, my overall point, looking at the whole route, is clearly we want the whole trail, but we want to progress as many of the elements of it as we can that make a sensible package to both get planning permission for and also issue a construction and other contracts for. There are other people who may be concerned about sections of the land, so I just record really for the benefit of it being in the public domain that we've had a couple of other letters, obviously, from other people along the route, but we've not been able to establish, for instance, whether their land is actually affected. So it will be part and parcel of the consultation that if there are people who want to find out is on the specific route, does it impact on them, then we will be in a position to respond. So in relation to one a landowner towards the north of the route, we will respond to them by email once we've investigated that.
That's correct. I mean, as the report says, we've contacted certainly most landowners that we are aware of along the route.
So the county council's contacted as many landowners as it's aware of.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay. So we're anticipating that obviously the landowners have to have a say in the matter. Okay. All right, well, thank you for your contributions. I was going to propose putting the recommendations as improved by the Assembly to the board. Are people happy with putting that as revised recommendations? So we've got two recommendations: that we approve the proposed route and the wording that's for the purposes of consultation, and we give approval to proceed to consultation in the autumn. And I'll just add that we've noted in the note points that have been discussed the timing that we look for a report back of January and February. So can I put those recommendations to the board? All those in favour?
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for all the work that's been put into it. I think we're getting there, Jim. Okay, and thanks, Roger. Right, if we can move on to the next item, which is also on cycling, we've got item 7 on cross-city cycle improvements. Any comments to add, Roger?
Chairman, the Assembly was very encouraged by this report and was pleased to see how these schemes joined up with other schemes, both current and future schemes. It also noted, obviously, not all schemes are within the city deal, but we're pleased to see that they were actually being looked at as schemes outside the city deal. There's other sources of funding, obviously. So, as you can see from the report, there was unanimous agreement to recommend the recommendations.
All right, thank you, Roger. And clearly, it is a significant amount of funding, which is in addition to other funds that might be won and sought. Any points to add?
Well, again, Chairman, very briefly, you will have read the paper. Just to be clear that this is a paper covering a series of potential schemes. So it's a range of cross-city cycling schemes, as Councillor Hickford said. They've been chosen in the sense that they tie in with the broader strategy and other schemes that are already in place. So there is a logic and coherence to the package. The chosen set of, or the suggested set of schemes that's in the paper has been produced from a sifting process which had a long list of schemes. Some of those schemes, and the appendices cover this detail, some of those schemes will actually, although they've scored quite highly in terms of their impact, will actually be brought forward as part of other City Deal package schemes. So for example, there are proposals on Milton Road, the Sainsbury's roundabout and so on, which will be incorporated in those City Deal packages when they come forward, and the board has taken a view when they should happen. So what we have here are a series of schemes which are in addition to the, if you like, the other main City Deal packages, which will include cycling. So yes, the recommendations there for the board, and certainly strongly from an officer point of view supported to actually get on with the consultation, because then these are again schemes that could be delivered not necessarily as a whole package but one by one, so they could show early delivery within the overall City Deal process.
Okay, so it's been the result of a lot of consultation and scoring and development. So we've got the 5 schemes on page 32 and 33. We've got a small amount for cycle parking, but which also underlines the importance of there being further attention to that, as well as some minor improvements and cut-throughs through housing areas and other places that connect them. So Fulbourn, Cherry Hinton, Eastern Access, Hills Road, Addenbrooks Corridor, East Cambridge, Arbury Road, and the important area around North Cambridge Station. Any questions, points? Councillor Count.
Yes, thank you. I fully support everything in front of the paper here, but I get the impression from the appendix that what we've done is look at the city as a whole, the South Thames area and city area, and try to find all the possible good ideas for cycling and kind of score them and come up with a top few. And we had one mentioned earlier, Lensfield Road roundabout, which I believe isn't in there. So I was just wondering, is because of the possible ambitiousness of, I don't know the area very well, is it because the only solutions that would solve that are just so far off the chart that it wasn't in there, or is it under a different name, or is it something that could be considered so we could understand a bit more about the complexity of that?
Claire, sorry.
Yeah, I mean certainly as you can see from the scoring list, the Lensfield Road roundabout came up very high, but the view was that because it's obviously very close to the city centre, that the access study, the City Deal scheme, will have implications for that roundabout, and also we're aware that road safety, for example, are looking at that area. So that's the reason why it came out, because we felt it would be covered from either the other City Deal scheme or from elsewhere within the county council. So that's why.
So it's still on the priority.
It's certainly, I mean, it's definitely a priority, and it has, I think, the highest accident rate for cyclists, that particular junction.
I couldn't find it.
It's
I've simply gone blind.
No, I don't think that's the case.
Oh no, it's the third one down.
It's
It's
the
in the
third one down,
second part.
yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very
So
much.
it's in current, so I know it's been looked at, and as I said, we did feel that the implications from the city access.
Much appreciated. My question really revolved on the fact that my eyesight's so poor than anything else, so I'm glad you answered that. It's in there and there's reason for it not going ahead at this point in time. Thank you.
And several of the other schemes, as you'll note also, if you see just considering Hills Road, considering Milton Road, considering Histon Road, we've got a lot of, and considering Manningley Road, a lot of them are addressed.
No, I understood
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it certainly came out in that meeting and doing the scoring system, just how important cycling is as those other City Deal schemes, or are not specifically cycling schemes, but actually they're a really high priority for cycling.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's good news that we can add £4 million investment to tackle some of the biggest sort of junctions and challenges in the cycling network. Are we happy to move to the recommendations? All those in favour?
Yeah.
Okay, well thank you, and thank you for all the work that's been put in there. Right, your fourth and last opportunity, Councillor Hickford. So we're moving on to item 8, and the consideration of the Smarter Cambridgeshire work stream, and thank you. And Noel Cocker is going to join us as well. So, do you want to add anything to the report?
Again, there was unanimous agreement from the Assembly on this. There was probably more conversation on this concerning the driverless vehicles and pods, which caught everyone's imagination than anything else. But it's all very, very important. So there was unanimous agreement that we recommend it.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that was put into considering the issues by the Assembly as well.
Thank you.
Noel, do you want to add a few words? A little bit maybe about the diagram on page 45 as well?
So my page numbers are different. This is.
Are they different? All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a diagram anyway.
This one.
More thinking about this one.
Oh,
Actually,
this one.
but
Right. I suppose this proposal has come about following on from a workshop for the City Deal Board and Assembly earlier this year. And the purpose of that workshop was really to look and see to explore whether a smart cities approach could support and complement the City Deal programme, the objectives of the City Deal. And I think the conclusion was yes, that it could, and so this is where this proposal has come about. And I suppose briefly, obviously digital technology underpins so many aspects of modern living now, but specifically emerging smart cities technology, which brings together digital connectivity, sensors and different ways of using data in innovative ways to help solve city challenges, is very relevant to the objectives of the City Deal, and it's particularly pertinent in Greater Cambridge, where we've got the academic and business sectors with a very long, broad and deep history of developing advanced technology. So it's a good opportunity to bring that together, to work collaboratively across all sectors to develop a smart cities approach to support the City Deal objectives. And so within the proposal there's three sort of strands for that. There's an initial fairly short, sharp 1 year approach initially that has three strands to it. The first is looking at and this comes back to this diagram, looking at developing an architectural blueprint to make sure that the technology building blocks are in place to enable some of this stuff to happen. A second strand, which is developing a kind of digital testbed, short, small-scale pilot technologies to prove the technologies, also to enable the business and academic sector to work with us and help to showcase and start demonstrating their technology. And then a third strand, which is much more about the overall vision, supporting how this can support the aims of the City Deal for the decades to come, because a lot of the schemes, a lot of the objectives that are within the City Deal programme are going to last for many decades, and it's to make sure that they're future facing and making the most use of the technology that's emerging now. Very briefly it.
Okay. I think one of the part of the genesis of this is that if we can spend £1,000 using in terms of this technology that generates us a better result than £1,000 of remodelling the road structure, then that's £1,000 well spent, and there clearly are some significant potential opportunities here, but a lot more work still to do. So, yeah. Any questions? Councillor Camp.
Yes, just on the architecture, to a certain extent some of the technologies that are coming along might be quite conceptual, and we're trying to plan ahead for that. So how do we know what architecture we kind of want to put in, and what kind of things are we thinking about at the moment?
Well, that is the question, and that's really the reason for thinking about an architectural blueprint, because as you say, a lot of the technology is moving very quickly. So one of the things that we've got to try and build within that is the ability to interoperate and to be able to change things as you go, so that you don't put in one bit of technology, then it's obsolete and the whole thing has to be refreshed. I have to say it's a challenge to do that, and that's where working across the sector, across all the different sectors, has been really helpful to date already. We've had quite a lot of input from the computer labs, from some of the advanced technology companies in the area, actually trying to do a bit of future gazing and understanding quite where that technology is going. But you're quite right, it is going to change, and all we can do is make sure that we've got common building blocks so that we can reuse them as the technology changes around it. I think you also asked about what exactly do we mean, and part of it's about the actual connectivity to make sure that things can communicate with each other, and the other aspects are around sensors to make sure that so that part of the emerging technology enables many more things to connect with other things. From a traffic infrastructure perspective, that's things like traffic lights talking to variable messaging signs, talking to car park sensors and other things. But it's also about making sure that from a data perspective that we've got data stores that are open and we can exchange data between them in a seamless and efficient way.
If I might continue a bit. A couple of things. One of the things, apart from sensors and ground, is I take it we'll have to look at the top as well, so that we don't say we have line of sight transmissions or something from a mast, that we don't put new buildings in the way, or that we have a way of getting around that. I don't know that kind of stuff. But in terms of a test bed, Cambridge will obviously be ideal for a test bed where it's very difficult to move the buildings around and the roads around. So you say, well, here's a really difficult place to work in, so let's test out stuff here. But also, whatever we're testing may well have not just an inside a city output. It might say, how can you use what you're testing here to get to the next city? So are we in discussions, or can we open discussions with, say, Peterborough, for example, to say, well, if you do a bit at your end and our end, and then because if not, we might only have half a test bed.
Yes, I totally agree. We've started those discussions not just with Peterborough but also with Milton Keynes and some other cities, because that's exactly the point. It needs to be replicable and scalable to make sure that it's sustainable. So.
Thank you very much. A little bit more. From the comments earlier on from Edward Lee on gating, not something I've really heard about before, but I picked up on there the bit about you get to the park and ride and you have the choice of whether to chance it to go into the city under the gating proposal. Well, under this kind of work, if you have the signs up saying it will take you 14 minutes to your destination or 43 minutes, then that kind of helps in the same principle in a different way. It doesn't do exactly the same as gating, but it just struck me as a very useful thing. The other technology that I'm seeing come along, and I don't know how that works with smart cities or whether it does at all, but I'm seeing much greater use. I've seen the odd occasion where people have bought electrically powered devices. I've seen sort of a paddle board like that where you can just stand on and go along the road. I've seen unicycles that are this high, and I've looked them up and they do 18 mile per hour and they go for 18 miles and that sort of thing. So how we keep it, does any of that play in, and how do we manage to keep an eye on what we should be keeping an eye on?
It does all play in, because there are multiple solutions which are going to solve some of the traffic issues, and I think it was referenced the autonomous vehicles. Some people say, well, that's light years away, that's not going to happen. Other people say, well, it's quite close, and you certainly have to keep your eye on all of those different areas of technology. So we are doing that. Again, I have to say that's where the collaboration that we've already got within the business and academic sectors in Cambridge is really helpful, because we've got people talking to us about where some of those new developments are coming on stream. I'm not sure whether unicycles is going to form part of it, but certainly just keeping that eye on right across the piece.
They were self-balancing, that was the whole thing, because that would be an option for much for many of us. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just to say, Lewis, that the university is very pleased to be partnering in this project for a variety of different routes. It's a good thing for the city to be doing.
And it gives us the opportunity to pitch for other funding, because as with the hugely successful impact that you've had on Connecting Cambridgeshire, it helps if we've got money that we can get from other sources. So we've got a list of potential projects on page 47 and 8, which is Appendix C. Any other comments? So are we happy to approve the recommendations on page 41? Okay. Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think we've agreed that. No, thank you for all the work that's been put in. Yeah, we are a city that has got some unique talents in both the university and in the business sector, as well as the need for us to tackle transport in innovative ways, and this could make some inroads. We will wait and work and support and see whether we need to put any further resources in if necessary. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 9, which is the forward planning. We've got quite a significant number of projects coming through in the autumn. So on page 50, for instance, we've got a large agenda for November. There isn't going to be a meeting at the beginning of September, but we've got some items for October. We need to do some further work on the congestion consultation process, and obviously come forward with more details on that.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. My colleague here, who doesn't speak anymore, apparently, has reminded me that we should welcome Tanya Sheridan, who's sitting in the back row. So we could have probably said this at the beginning, but as we're near the end, I thought we'd at least fit it in. So we'd like to welcome Tanya Sheridan, who hasn't started yet, but has been appointed to be the director for the City Deal. So we now have our first employee. So welcome, Tanya.
Thanks, Ian. I should also point out that Aaron is an employee as well. So.
Okay, there are now 2. Oh, okay. 2 appointees. Okay. Well, thank you. And that doesn't deny the fact that there is many inputs, as you will see from the people in the room and the work that's underway. So thank you for joining us, Tanya. We look forward to you giving us the reports on the future work programme later. So thank you for everybody's inputs. We have, in terms of future meetings, we've got an informal meeting planned early in September. Our next formal meeting will be on the 1st of October, and so we welcome your inputs today, and we look forward to continuing to deliver the programme. We will also await with interest any further additions by the government to devolution and opportunities that Cambridgeshire might play a part in that too. All right, well, thank you for everybody's inputs. I declare the meeting closed.